They don't fall for the guy who tries the hardest. They fall for the one who knows when to say less, and exactly what to say when he speaks. Most men think attraction is built through compliments, charm, or even physical touch. But the truth? She's already heard all of that. She's numb to it. And the more effort you put in trying to impress her, the more invisible you become. You've probably been there, talking to a woman, trying to keep the energy high, hoping she notices you, maybe even feeling like things are going well. But deep down, you know it's not landing. She's smiling, but she's not pulled in. She's not feeling that heat. You're not the guy she thinks about hours later. Here's the shift. Attraction isn't built through doing more. It's built through saying less but saying the right thing. The kind of thing that slips past her logic and hits her in the gut. The kind of line that makes her question what just happened. That catches her off guard and ignites her imagination. And when you say it with restraint, with calm, with presence, that's when her mind starts spinning. That's when she starts chasing you. In this video, you're going to learn exactly what to say and when to flip the switch. Not just to impress her, but to make her feel you in a way she can't explain. Let's get into it. Number 1. The line that melts her guard instantly. You're making it very hard for me to behave right now. That line, when said with timing, calm, and just the right pause, does something most men never pull off. It makes her stop, it makes her feel, and it slips right under her defenses. Let's make this real. Mark is 48. He's been divorced for a year after 20 years of marriage. Rachel is 44, smart, confident, and successful in her own right. They're on a third date, sitting in a cozy booth at a dimly lit jazz bar in downtown Chicago. It's one of those nights where the music hums low, the wine feels smooth, and the conversation flows like they've known each other for years. But then comes that shift, the one where her eyes linger a little longer, her smile stays at the corner of her lips, a beat too long. She's not leaning in yet, but she's listening deeper. Most men would ruin this moment. They'd rush, say something crass, try to be funny, or worse, freeze and miss it entirely. Mark doesn't do any of that. He leans in, not close, just enough, drops his voice, keeps the eye contact steady, and with the faintest smirk, says, "You're making it very hard for me to behave right now." He doesn't smile like a boy looking for approval. He doesn't try to explain it. He just leaves it hanging in the air. Rachel doesn't laugh. She pauses, blinks, tilts her head slightly, and suddenly, she's no longer in control of the conversation he islanded. Not because he forced it, but because he shifted the energy. See, that line isn't just words. It's layered. It's playful but not silly. It's honest but still controlled. It's charged but restrained. It tells her, "You're affecting me, but I'm still composed. I'm aware of the tension and I'm not afraid of it." That's what creates heat, not touch, not compliments, but that stoic restraint that lets her feel the current while you sit there still. Stoic philosophy teaches presence, self-control, emotional sovereignty. This moment is the embodiment of all three. You're not hiding your interest, but you're not handing it to her either. You're not asking for permission. You're simply owning the moment. This flips the script. She's not wondering what you want. She's wondering what you're holding back. And that space, the unknown, the imagined, is where desire lives. Women at this stage of life aren't impressed by effort. They're drawn to the man who feels deeply and shows selectively, who isn't scared to let the silence breathe, who lets tension build like slow-burning fire. When Mark said that line, the rest of the night didn't need a plan. He didn't escalate. He didn't follow up with another clever phrase. He simply let the weight of his words and his calm presence hang there. That's what stayed with her. That's what made her think about him the next day, and that's what made her want to see him again. If you want to be memorable, don't just say the right thing. Feel it, mean it, and let her feel it too. If you've ever felt that quiet power building inside you, like you finally understand how to flip the dynamic without chasing, then type this in the comments to claim it. I control this. Let the world know you're not reacting anymore. You're choosing. Most guys waste years learning the wrong lessons, thinking it's about effort, gifts, or the perfect move. But the real shift happens in how you hold yourself, how you speak, and how you don't speak. And once you understand how to let that tension breathe, you stop trying to impress and start leaving an imprint. What comes next will show you how deep this can go. Number 2. How restraint triggers obsession. Most men think desire comes from what you do to her, but obsession doesn't start there. It starts with what you make her imagine. There's a moment in every interaction when she's not listening to your words anymore. She's watching how you hold yourself. She's picking up on what you're not saying, and that's where restraint flips the switch. You don't have to say too much. You don't have to touch her. You don't even have to keep the conversation going. If you know how to hold tension, how to sit in silence without shrinking, she feels it, and it messes with her mind in the best way. Because here's what no one teaches you, especially not in your 20s. The longer you hold back, the more her imagination has to fill in the blanks, and the mind always creates something more intense than reality. That's how obsession is born, not from your pursuit, but from your pause. It's in that controlled stillness where power lives, and she knows it. She might pretend not to, but deep down, when a man doesn't rush, doesn't fidget, doesn't try to prove anything, her internal radar lights up. Something inside her whispers, "This man knows something, he's holding something back. And I want to know what it island." Marcus Aurelius once said, "The nearer a man comes to a calm mind, the closer he is to strength." You don't need to chase. You don't need to perform. You need to become the kind of man who is so grounded, so clear in who he is, that even in silence, your presence says everything. That's the kind of man who leaves a mark. Restraint isn't weakness. It's the strongest play you can make, because it shows you're not ruled by impulse. You feel attraction, you feel the pull, but you don't react to it. You control it. And that control, when it's real, when it's not forced or performed, triggers something ancient in her psychology. It signals safety, it signals status, and it creates tension that lingers long after the conversation ends. When you say something like, "I probably shouldn't say what I'm thinking right now," and then you leave it there, no follow-up, no teasing smile, no punchline, what happens? She leans in, because that's not a line. That's an invitation into her own mind. She starts guessing. She plays the possible answers over and over. She tries to solve the puzzle you left hanging. And that loop is where her obsession starts to build. Not because you pushed, but because you paused. Epictetus said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life." And real freedom, in this case, is being free from needing her reaction. You don't say that line to get something. You say it because you know what it stirs, and you trust that silence is louder than speech. The man who isn't afraid of silence owns the room. He doesn't just speak with words. He speaks with timing, with energy, with absence. You don't have to make her feel everything at once. Let her chase the edge. Let her wonder. Let her feel the gap between what's said and what's felt. And the moment she starts filling in that space, you've already won. If you've ever held back, not out of fear, but out of choice, and felt her lean into that quiet drop, this in the comments. I hold power. Let it be known you're not out here over-explaining yourself. You're mastering the pause. Some men spend their whole lives trying to impress. Others learn how to influence without saying a word. You're about to see just how far that can go. Number 3. What she imagines is stronger than what you say. Most men think if they don't say something, nothing happens. But silence, when used right, isn't empty. It's loaded. And what she imagines during that silence will always hit harder than anything you could say out loud. Let me show you what I mean. Jason is 52, works in finance, and has been single for a while after a long relationship ended. He's having drinks with a woman named Monica, 47, who's confident, elegant, and hard to impress. They're out on a patio at a rooftop bar in San Diego. The night air is warm, the music is soft, and the conversation is smooth. She's laughing, but not trying too hard. He's engaged, but grounded. It's a good rhythm. Then she says something flirty, just light teasing, but there's an edge to it, that moment when the energy shifts, and there's clearly a mutual attraction. Most guys would take the bait and try to one-up her, or they'd throw out some playful comeback to keep the game going. Jason doesn't. He just looks at her, smirks slightly, leans back, takes a sip of his drink, and says, "I probably shouldn't say what I'm thinking right now." Then, nothing. He doesn't follow it up, doesn't try to save the silence, just lets it hang. Monica tilts her head. She wants to ask. Her curiosity fires up, but she holds back. She's trying to decode the moment. That's the point. By not filling in the gap, Jason let her imagination run wild. She's not just guessing what he was thinking. She's feeling the tension of not knowing. Her mind is now doing the heavy lifting for him, and what she imagines in that moment is far more powerful than anything he could have said. This is where most men lose their power. They explain too much, they overtalk, they break the silence because they're uncomfortable in it. But silence is where imagination lives, and in a woman's imagination you become whatever energy you're giving off. If you say nothing, but your eyes are steady, your tone is calm, your presence is firm, she'll feel it all, and she'll start creating the story in her own mind. That's not manipulation, that's mastery. Because you're not leading with desire, you're leading with energy, and you're letting her walk into it on her own. The ancient Stoics taught this too. Seneca once said, "What need is there to weep over parts of life? The whole of it calls for tears." But when you apply that to conversation, it reminds you, words often dilute the weight of your intent. The more you explain, the less impact it carries. When Jason said he shouldn't say what he was thinking, he communicated attraction, restraint, danger, and desire all in one sentence. But the genius move was what followed. Nothing. He gave her space to build the rest in her mind. And that space? That's where obsession brews. If he had said what he was thinking, it would have been over in a second. But now, she's playing the scenario over in her head, all night, maybe all week. Your silence must feel intentional. Your pauses must carry meaning. You're not retreating. You're letting her come toward the mystery. If you've ever left a woman speechless, not because you said something shocking, but because you let her imagination take over, type this in the comments. I live there. Let the world know your presence lingers, even after you've gone quiet. There are moments when saying less gives you more power than any clever line ever could. And if you understand that, you're already far ahead of most men. What happens next builds on this quiet storm you've just learned to create. Ready when you are. Number 4. Why silence can sound like seduction. We've been trained to believe that silence is awkward, that it needs to be filled, that it signals uncertainty or weakness. But in the right hands, silence isn't empty. It's magnetic, seductive, dangerous in the best way. There's a kind of silence that doesn't feel like absence. It feels like pressure, like something's about to happen, but no one's saying it. And when a man knows how to hold that space, not with tension, but with calm confidence, it becomes one of the most powerful tools in attraction. Think about it. A man who talks too much, who fills every gap, is telling her one thing: I'm uncomfortable with stillness. I'm afraid of being misunderstood. I need you to like me. But the man who pauses, who takes his time, who lets a few seconds pass without rushing to explain, he's saying something very different. He's showing her, I trust this moment. I'm not in a hurry. I don't need to chase. That confidence is rare, and rare is seductive. There's a quote by Zeno, one of the early Stoics. He said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we may listen more and speak less. It sounds simple, even gentle, but underneath it is a quiet kind of power. The man who listens more also sees more. He picks up what others miss, and when he does speak, it lands with weight. Women are far more tuned into tone, pacing, and presence than most men realize. They notice when you pause before answering. They feel the energy in how you hold eye contact while saying nothing at all. And the longer you can sit in that silence without flinching, the more they start to feel that tension, not as discomfort, but as heat. Because seduction isn't about what you say, it's about what she feels. And when a man doesn't rush to fill the silence, it creates space for her mind to move, to guess, to feel the tension rising without knowing exactly why. That space, that's everything. This doesn't mean you become a stone wall. Stoic silence isn't cold. It's alive, it listens, it watches, it reacts, but on its own terms. That's the difference between silence that feels seductive and silence that feels dead. You're not withholding, you're choosing when to engage, and that choice makes you unpredictable, which makes you interesting. The silence of a man who knows his own value isn't passive, it's full of awareness. He's not silent because he has nothing to say. He's silent because he doesn't need to speak just to be seen. This flips the power dynamic. She starts leaning in. She starts wondering what you're thinking. She begins to feel like she's stepping into your world rather than pulling you into hers. And that's exactly where you want to be. There's also a deeper layer. When you can sit in silence with another person and it doesn't feel heavy or forced, it builds intimacy. It says, we don't need to perform, we don't need to impress, we can just be. And that feeling, especially in a world obsessed with noise, is rare and deeply attractive. So next time you're in a moment that feels electric, don't rush to speak. Hold it. Let her feel it. Let the silence do the talking. If you've ever felt that pull in the air, that quiet energy rising between you and her, and knew you didn't have to say a word, type this in the comments. I speak silence. Let them know you've mastered the space most men are afraid of. You've just learned that silence isn't a gap, it's a gateway. Stay with me, because what you're about to discover next will take this even further. Number 5. The moment she realizes you're different. It's not when you compliment her, it's not when you say all the right things, it's not even when you make her laugh. The moment she realizes you're different is when you don't flinch, when most men would. Let's walk through this with a real story. Chris is 51, owns a construction business in Arizona, and isn't new to dating, but he's tired of surface-level games. He recently met Dana, 46, a yoga instructor with a sharp tongue and a fast filter for nonsense. Their second date starts smooth. Good food, light banter, some chemistry, but midway through dinner, Dana throws out a curveball. She says something blunt, maybe even a little cold. Something like, "You don't seem like the emotional type. Do you ever open up, or are you always this chill?" The kind of comment most men would react to. Get defensive, start explaining themselves, try to fix the mood, or laugh it off nervously. Chris doesn't do any of that. He hears her, holds her gaze, doesn't rush to reply. Then he calmly says, "Noted," and takes a sip of his drink. No overreaction, no proving, no shrinking. That moment right there, that's when Dana realized this wasn't like the other men she'd met. Because where they would have scrambled to recover or impress, he stayed rooted in who he was. That's the moment. Not the pickup line, not the dinner spot, not even the thoughtful follow-up text the next day. It's the microsecond where your energy tells her, "I don't need to win you, I know who I am." And here's why that lands so hard. Most women over 40 have already dealt with enough performers, enough ego, enough flash with no follow-through. They don't need fireworks. They crave stability, grounding, presence. When they test you, and they will, it's not always to push you away. Sometimes it's to see if you bend. Stoicism teaches that how you respond is everything. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Chris didn't pass some secret test by performing well. He passed it by not needing the moment to go a certain way. He was willing to let her think whatever she wanted, because he wasn't there to prove. He was there to be. And that emotional composure, that's rare. That's what signals, this one is different. That's the moment she starts paying attention differently. She's not analyzing anymore. She's feeling. She's not leading the dynamic. She's moving with it. Because when a man doesn't try to control how a woman sees him, he becomes unpredictable. And unpredictable is magnetic. She can't categorize you. She can't label you just another guy. And the moment she can't figure you out, you stay in her head. Not because you said anything profound, but because you didn't fall into the usual pattern. Think about it. What do most men do when they feel tension rise? They overcompensate. They explain themselves. They try to smooth things over. But not you. You breathe. You stay. You let the silence stretch for a second. You let the moment be real. That changes everything. It's in that stillness where respect begins, where attraction deepens, where she starts wondering, who is this guy? If you've ever had a woman stop and just look at you differently, not because you impressed her, but because you didn't chase the moment, type this in the comments. I stay rooted. Let them know you don't flinch when it matters most. You've just seen the moment where presence becomes persuasion. What happens next builds on that stillness and uses it to shift the entire dynamic in your favor. Number 6. Stoic presence versus needy energy. You can't fake grounded energy, and you sure as hell can't hide neediness. One draws her in. The other pushes her away, no matter how attractive you are, how good your conversation is, or how well you planned the night. Let's talk about the difference between stoic presence and needy energy, because it's subtle, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. Stoic presence is calm, clear, and unbothered. It's when a man walks into a room and doesn't have to say much, but people notice, not because he's loud, but because he's centered. His focus is inward, not outward. He's not scanning for approval. He's not waiting for validation. He's already chosen himself. Needy energy is the opposite. It looks like constant talking, over-explaining, trying too hard to be agreeable, filling every gap in the conversation because silence feels uncomfortable. It's the guy who texts too fast, laughs too loud, leans in too far. Neediness isn't just action, it's intention behind the action. It's wanting something from her more than you want to be true to yourself. And women feel that difference instantly. A man with stoic presence doesn't just hold space. He becomes the space. He doesn't force connection, he lets it unfold. And when he speaks, it's not to perform, it's to reveal. There's no rush, no overcompensation, just quiet clarity. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The tranquility that comes when you stop caring what they say, or think, or do, only what you do. That's the mindset of presence. You're not shaped by her reaction, you're shaped by your own principles." That's powerful, and it's rare. Needy energy comes from the fear of not being enough, of being ignored, of not being chosen. So it reaches, it chases, it presses for results. But here's the thing, presence doesn't chase outcomes. It attracts attention by not needing it. That's what makes it magnetic. When a woman is with a man who radiates presence, she relaxes. She doesn't feel pressure to perform or decide too quickly. She leans in because she wants to, not because she's being pulled. Needy energy, even if masked in charm, makes her pull away. She senses the pressure underneath, the expectation, the hunger. And hunger never feels like confidence. It feels like lack. Presence says, "I'm already whole." Needy energy says, "Please tell me I am." One is rooted in identity. The other is a reaction to fear. You don't need to talk less, dress better, or memorize scripts to have presence. You need to believe you are enough without needing her to prove it. The truth is, you don't win her interest by saying everything perfectly. You win it by being the kind of man who doesn't fear silence, doesn't chase laughter, and doesn't flinch if things don't go his way. That's presence. And when a man carries that into a date, into a conversation, into a moment, that's when she notices something different in him. Even if she can't name it, she feels it. She might not say it out loud, but her body responds. Her voice softens, her pacing slows. She tunes in, because energy doesn't lie. If you've ever walked away from a moment knowing you didn't have to force anything because you were solid in who you are, type this in the comments. I am enough. Let them know you don't reach. You radiate. Most guys are loud because they're empty, but the ones who move quietly, they're the ones who change the room. What's coming next is for men who are ready to stop proving and start leading. Number 7. How mystery fuels her desire. There's a difference between being vague and being mysterious. One confuses her, the other captivates her. And that difference comes down to how you hold your energy. Let's bring this to life. David is 56, a semi-retired architect in Portland. After losing his wife a few years ago, he's slowly stepped back into the dating world. He meets Allison, 49, a psychology professor, through a friend. Their first coffee turns into a 3-hour walk. She's curious, she asks questions. She wants to know everything about him, but David doesn't give her everything. He tells stories, yes, but he never gives the full picture. When she asks about past relationships, he answers with honesty but not detail. When she pushes for why he never remarried, he simply smiles and says, "Some things are better left felt than explained." That line, that's what she keeps thinking about later, because mystery doesn't mean hiding things. It means letting her discover you piece by piece. David isn't cold. He's warm, present, attentive, but he's not pouring everything out. He's not looking for emotional clearance. He's offering small windows, not the whole map. And that makes Allison feel something she hasn't felt in years: wonder. Desire doesn't grow in clarity. It grows in curiosity. The moment she thinks she knows everything, her imagination turns off. But if there are corners of you she can't quite see yet, she leans in. She stays alert. She starts imagining. And, as we've said before, what she imagines is always more powerful than what you explain. The Stoics knew this. Seneca once said, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." Flip that. In relationships, it's not the man who gives less who fails, it's the one who gives too much, too soon, without direction. David's restraint wasn't about withholding. It was about pacing. About protecting the depth of who he is by not letting it all spill out on the first encounter. And Allison? She's now thinking about him constantly. Not because he was flashy, but because he left a door slightly open and walked away without inviting her in. That's mystery. It's in the way you speak, the way you pause, the way you end a conversation with a look instead of a long explanation. It's not about playing games. It's about letting her earn access to who you are, slowly, intentionally. And that makes every new moment feel earned, not handed out. When a man holds mystery well, he doesn't push for attention. He lets intrigue do the work. She's not just interested, she's invested, because now she's imagining. And the imagination is where desire blooms. If David had told Allison everything, she might have appreciated it. But she wouldn't be craving a second date. That craving came from what she didn't get, from what he didn't say, from the emotional space he allowed her to enter without pushing her through the door. And the most powerful part? He wasn't doing it to be clever. That's just who he is now. Quiet, clear, intentional. A man with nothing to prove and everything to reveal, over time. If you've ever had a woman lean in, not because you impressed her, but because she felt there was more beneath the surface, type this in the comments. I hold mystery. Let them know you don't reveal it all at once. What's coming next isn't just about how she sees you, but how she feels herself when she's around you. And that changes everything. Number 8. The power of not finishing your sentence. There's something wild that happens when you stop mid-sentence on purpose. Not because you forgot what to say, but because you knew exactly what to say, and you chose not to. It's subtle, but it lands like thunder. Most guys talk too much because they're scared of space, scared of being misunderstood, scared of losing momentum. But here's the secret. When you learn to stop just short, you gain more impact. Because it's not the words that create tension, it's what you leave hanging in the air. The power of not finishing your sentence isn't about being cryptic. It's about creating a moment where her mind has to do the work. And when you invite her imagination into the conversation, she's no longer just hearing you, she's feeling you. Let's say you're talking, and mid-thought you say, "I probably shouldn't even be saying this, but..." And then you just leave it. You move on. You don't deliver the punchline. That space, those 3 seconds of nothing, is where the magic happens. Because now she's replaying it, guessing, projecting, creating her own meaning. And that act of imagining is more intimate than anything you could have actually said. The Stoics understood this power of restraint. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." In other words, stop explaining, start embodying. You don't need to finish the thought if the energy behind it already spoke for you. And here's the twist. Finishing your sentence is safe. Not finishing it, that takes control. It shows you're not trying to impress her. You're giving her a taste, not the whole plate. It creates a contrast most men can't, because most men fill silence with filler. They ramble, they try to keep her entertained. But when you're calm enough to let a moment dangle, she leans in. Not because you asked her to, but because you created space for her curiosity. Think about the last time someone said something and didn't finish. Your brain locked in, didn't it? You needed closure. That's the psychology at work here. And when it's used sparingly, with presence, it doesn't confuse, it seduces. This isn't about being vague for attention. It's about learning that sometimes the most powerful part of what you say is what you leave unsaid. Because that part? That's hers to figure out. The man who knows how to do this, who doesn't always close the loop, becomes unpredictable. And unpredictability breeds intrigue. Intrigue fuels attention, and attention deepens attraction. But here's the key. You can't fake this. You have to actually be okay with the pause, with not being understood, with her not having the full answer. That takes grounded confidence. That's what makes it work. You're not doing it to get a reaction. You're doing it because you trust the silence more than the sentence. That trust, that's what separates presence from performance. Seneca once said, "He who is brave is free." In this context, bravery means letting the tension build without rushing to fix it. That's emotional freedom. That's seductive. If you've ever let a thought dangle in the air and watched her eyes lock onto you like she needed to know more, type this in the comments. I trust silence. Let them know you don't explain yourself to earn attention. You've just seen how the unsaid becomes unforgettable. And what comes next takes this one step deeper into how she begins to feel herself differently just by being near your energy. Number 9. Letting her feel the tension, not the touch. Touch is obvious, anyone can do that. But tension, that's what she remembers. That's what lingers. Let's look at a real-world example. Ben is 48, divorced, runs a successful consulting business in Texas. He meets Claire, 44, a divorced mother of 2, through a mutual connection. Both have busy lives. Both have been through enough to spot superficial energy from a mile away. They go out for drinks. The conversation is easy. The connection is there. But here's what stands out. Ben doesn't make a move. Not once. He listens. He watches. He holds her gaze without forcing it. At one point, she brushes his hand slightly while laughing. He doesn't lean in. He doesn't capitalize. He holds the moment, then lets it pass. And that moment, that's what Claire replays in her head on the drive home, because it's not about physical touch, it's about what the moment could have been. The possibility, the restraint, the electricity of what wasn't acted on. Most men rush the moment. They mistake closeness for an invitation, but a Stoic man sees it differently. He knows presence is more powerful than pressure. He's not afraid of silence. He's not afraid of the pause. See, we're wired to chase resolution. We want things to complete, to close loops. But the human mind doesn't crave closure as much as it craves tension. Letting her feel the tension without moving toward the touch tells her you're in control of yourself, of the moment, of your own desire. That's not just attractive, it's addictive. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." You can't control how she reacts, but you can control how you show up. And showing up with restraint shows strength, especially in moments where most men would leap. Ben didn't hold back because he was unsure. He withheld because he didn't need to rush the outcome. That's the difference. He wasn't trying to get something. He was being someone. And Claire felt that. She didn't walk away questioning if he liked her. She walked away wondering why he didn't act. That wondering, that's the seed of obsession. Because the body may crave touch, but the mind craves meaning, and meaning lives in that space between impulse and action. The man who lets the moment breathe without grabbing at it becomes the man who owns the dynamic. He doesn't chase chemistry, he lets it build and lets her feel every second of it. Here's what most men don't realize. When you touch too soon, you collapse the tension. You answer the question too fast. You kill the intrigue before it even begins. But when you let her sit in the moment, when you're fully present without pressing forward, she starts leaning in more than she expected. Her imagination lights up. Her body starts responding without you even moving. Because now it's not about the move. It's about the moment before the move. And that space, that's where desire lives. If you've ever been in that space where you could have acted, but chose stillness instead, type this in the comments. I choose tension. Let them know you don't grab what you already magnetize. What comes next isn't louder, it's deeper, and it shifts everything about how she sees you and how she responds without even realizing it. Number 10. Why she craves what she can't control. Let's flip the script for a second. What happens when she knows exactly how you feel, where you stand, and what you want before she even has to ask? She relaxes for a moment. Then something shifts. The certainty turns to boredom. The clarity turns into routine. Because no matter how much she says she wants emotional transparency, what actually captures her attention, what lingers in her thoughts, is the one thing she can't define. And that's you, when you're centered, calm, still, unbothered, but also unpredictable. See, people don't chase comfort, they chase contrast. They want to feel something that breaks their mental rhythm. And you, when you're no longer broadcasting every emotion, every thought, every plan, you become that contrast. You're not cold, you're not distant, but you're not in her hands either. You're not a story she gets to finish. You're a presence she has to keep figuring out. And it drives her wild. Let's ground this in psychology. The mind is attracted to uncertainty more than certainty. Dopamine, the neurotransmitter tied to reward and motivation, is released more intensely when outcomes are unpredictable. That's why games, cliffhangers, and unsent messages get stuck in our heads. It's not what's said, it's what's left open. Now add masculinity to the mix. Masculinity in its truest form is stillness under pressure. It's the refusal to be emotionally yanked around just to maintain someone's interest. It's presence without performance. And that, she can't control it, she can't label it, and that's exactly why she craves it. When a man doesn't try to steer the conversation back to himself, when he doesn't need to explain every decision, When he doesn't feel the urge to correct how he's being perceived, she feels tension. Not because he's withholding, but because he's whole. And a whole man isn't something she can mold. Here's where the Stoic mindset comes in. Epictetus said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." Most men give their freedom away without realizing it. They overshare to gain trust. They overcommit to avoid rejection. They overanalyze to maintain control. But the man who's free, he doesn't need to be understood. He doesn't perform clarity just to make her feel secure. He stands in silence and lets the moment breathe. And when she realizes she can't fully predict him, when she senses that her usual tactics won't give her leverage, her body tenses. Not in fear, but in fascination. She feels drawn in, even if she can't explain why. And that's the truth most men never learn. Control kills curiosity. The second she knows she's got you, the game is over. Not because she's cruel, but because the dynamic flattens. There's no rise, no edge, no polarity. But the moment she feels a man who won't shift just to be liked, who doesn't need to be chosen to know his worth, she leans in harder than she ever has before. Because now she's not reacting to words, she's responding to presence. She's not craving reassurance, she's craving access. And here's the final twist. You don't give her that access quickly. You let her walk the edge, let her feel the heat, let her wonder. Because mystery without tension is forgettable. But tension without control? That's obsession. And when she craves what she can't control, you don't have to chase her. She's already chasing something deeper, something she's not used to, something she can't name. And that's you. You've just seen how masculine stillness, restraint, and subtle psychological pressure aren't just attractive, they're unforgettable. This isn't about tactics. It's about becoming the kind of man who doesn't need to chase, perform, or impress. Because when you learn to hold space instead of fill it, everything shifts. You stop trying to control the dynamic and start shaping it silently. If that's the kind of energy you want to keep building, you're in the right place. Hit subscribe so you never miss a shift in power like this again. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.